Do not ask for more respect. Become inaccessible. Stoicism. There are moments in life when you feel like you are shouting into a deaf world. You ask for respect, demand consideration, and try to explain yourself. And yet it seems every word dissolves into thin air. It's like offering pearls to those who only see common stones. Deep down, this pain carries a silent message. The more you try to be seen, the more invisible you become. And that is precisely where Stoicism points us in another direction. True respect is not born from requests, but from presence. It doesn't come from speeches, but from actions. It flourishes in calculated silence, in strategic absence, in the inaccessibility that separates the essential from the superfluous. The power of silence is sharper than any word, and the scarcity of your attention is the purest gold you possess. When you become selective about what you give, you begin to realize that it's not the world that changes, it's you. This video is an invitation to abandon the addiction to validation and walk toward higher ground, where respect is not bargained for, but inevitably earned. You will discover that emotional distance is a key to authority, that the economy of attention is a weapon, and that silent victory is sweeter than any public recognition. Because in the end, he who becomes inaccessible learns to be unshakable. Write in the comments, "My silence is my strength," if you feel it's time to change the way you deal with people. I want to know how many here are ready to trade, demanding respect for the posture of someone who simply inspires it. Why begging for respect diminishes you. There is something silently devastating about extending a hand to beg for respect, like someone asking for a sip of water from the one who guards the spring. By claiming what should be natural, your own authority begins to dissolve. Stoicism teaches that personal value is not negotiated in public, nor is it begged for as a favor. Respect that needs to be asked for has already lost its power. Those who live on crumbs end up forgetting they carry the entire banquet within themselves. To beg for respect is like handing over the scepter of your own authority to another and waiting for them to return it. It's offering the keys to your own house and waiting outside, hoping to be invited in. The power of silence, so precious in Stoicism, indicates a wiser path, calculated inaccessibility. Often, not being available is the most powerful statement you can make, and the most curious thing, without needing to say a single word. There are those who earn respect through the scarcity and rarity of their presence. It is the weight of silent authority, which doesn't need to announce itself to be noticed. Emotional distance, when well managed, awakens true recognition. Authentic respect is born from integrity that imposes itself without depending on fiery speeches. It is in strategic absence that one often finds the most profound form of presence. Personal value does not flourish where there is emotional begging. It grows in the firm ground of self-control, watered by strategic patience. Knowing when to withdraw is as important as knowing when to act. Integrity is not bowing to the unstable opinions of others. When you understand that respect is a reflection of who you are, the soul finds serenity. Those who do not beg for respect carry a different posture. Their presence is firm, even in silence, and their absence speaks for itself. This is the silent victory, realizing that respect was always there, waiting to be recognized. There is no need to beg for what you already possess, because true respect is not received as a gift. It is inevitably granted to those who live with dignity. The Stoic logic behind not asking for respect. Stoicism teaches us that true respect is born as a reflection of the life you live, not as a result of demands. When someone asks for respect, they put themselves in a position of dependence, transferring the responsibility for recognition to another. This breaks the silent authority that comes from integrity and personal value. Respect imposed by consistency lasts longer than any verbal command. After all, true authority is felt, not proclaimed. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, rarely asked for deference. He received it naturally through the example he offered. His silence carried more weight than fiery speeches. and his presence, even if discreet, held power. This is why the power of silence and inaccessibility are so valuable. They communicate more than any request. Those who live in tune with their values do not need to verbally reinforce their position. Respect comes like a shadow that follows the body. Strategic absence is also part of this logic. When we remove ourselves from situations and people that diminish us, without justifications or excessive explanations, we reaffirm our value. Emotional distance is not coldness, but self-control and an economy of attention. This silent choice preserves our energy and prevents us from being drained by those who do not recognize our integrity. It is in this posture that respect flourishes without needing to be requested. The Stoic logic values example over demand. If a person maintains integrity even when no one is watching, they create legitimate authority. This authority does not depend on applause, but is manifested in the way others begin to behave around them. It is a discreet, almost invisible, yet deeply effective power. This is where strategic patience lives, waiting for recognition to come from who you are, not from what you demand. Ultimately, not asking for respect is choosing to remain whole. It is understanding that by positioning yourself with dignity and self-control, you become naturally inaccessible to any attempt at disrespect. And this inaccessibility, when combined with the power of silence, builds a solid image that resists time. Thus, respect becomes an inevitable consequence, not something that needs to be begged for. He who understands this lives and leads with a silent victory. How the need for validation weakens your position. The constant search for validation is like trying to fill a broken vase. No matter how much effort you put in, it will never stay full. In Stoicism, inner strength comes from knowing who you are without needing others' approval. When you give too much power to the gaze of others, you surrender your own silent authority. The need for immediate recognition reveals insecurity and dilutes personal value. Thus, respect recedes, like sand slipping through your fingers. Each time someone insistently seeks external confirmation, they give up their emotional autonomy. It's like leaving the keys to your own identity in the hands of others, allowing them to decide whether or not you deserve to be respected. The power of silence teaches the opposite. Let your actions speak louder than your words. Strategic absence, in this context, is a shield against the volatile judgment of people. It is the emotional detachment that protects your integrity. Too much validation becomes an addiction. And like any addiction, it comes at a high price. It steals energy, harms self-control, and destroys the economy of attention. A leader, a master, or any person of legitimate authority does not bow to beg for approval. On the contrary, they maintain a firm presence and a scarcity of exposure, because they know that excess trivializes. Respect is earned in silent consistency, not in the anxiety for applause. Scarcity creates desire, dependence creates repulsion. Strategic patience reminds us that time reveals more than haste. Those who do not chase after validation build deep roots that withstand storms. This posture requires courage not to surrender to the impulse to justify yourself at all times. It is integrity that sustains this courage, allowing personal value to shine even without spotlights. In the end, true respect is born when you don't need an audience to live your principles. He who abandons the need for validation becomes inaccessible to manipulation and emotional blackmail. They begin to live according to who they are, not what others expect them to be. This silent victory is the result of conscious choices, not desperate attempts to please. It is when the soul finds freedom, upon realizing it owes nothing to the world to deserve respect. And paradoxically, that is precisely when respect begins to emerge. What to do when you realize you're not valued? Realizing you're not valued can hurt like a silent wound. It's as if your presence, once full of meaning, begins to be seen as something common, almost invisible. Stoicism teaches that personal value does not depend on the external gaze, but on internal clarity about who you are. Still, when this realization hits, you must act with integrity. And the first action is not to shout, but to withdraw. Withdrawing does not mean running away, but practicing strategic absence. It is the conscious withdrawal that removes from the scene what was being wasted. This emotional distance restores balance and prevents energy from continuing to be given to those who do not know how to receive it. The power of silence comes in as an ally, avoiding unnecessary confrontations. Respect is not regained with demands, but with scarcity. When you notice you are not valued, it is time to review where and to whom your attention is being directed. The economy of attention is not just about productivity, but about dignity. Giving time and presence to those who do not recognize it undermines your own silent authority. You must then create clear boundaries and stay true to them. Self-control here is an act of self-respect. This posture requires strategic patience. Recognition may not come from where you expect, and perhaps it will never come, but that does not diminish your value. Stoicism reminds us that living with integrity is worth more than any applause. When you maintain consistency, even in the absence of validation, you build something unshakable. Silent victory arises when you realize you don't need to prove anything to anyone. In the end, what to do when you are not valued is simple, though challenging. Preserve yourself. Become inaccessible to disrespect, reduce exposure, and strengthen your own essence. Absence, when well used, screams louder than 1,000 speeches. And in this calculated silence, personal value begins to flourish again. Because he who withdraws with dignity is never defeated. They simply change the scenery to where respect can grow. The power of silence as a response. Silence is an ancient language that precedes any word. In Stoicism, it is not an empty void, but a fertile ground where respect germinates. Responding with silence is to deny fuel to conflict and preserve your own silent authority. It is choosing not to get involved in another's game, protecting integrity and the economy of attention. It is understanding that often the absence of a reaction is the most eloquent message. Speaking less gives the other person the opportunity to reflect on their own behavior. Silence creates a scarcity of responses and, with it, increases your personal value in the eyes of the observer. It's not about coldness, but about strategic emotional distance. When words are rare, they carry more weight. Thus, each pause transforms into a silent affirmation of self-control. Throughout history, many leaders have earned respect through the calculated use of silence. Marcus Aurelius, for example, rarely reacted immediately to provocations. He knew that a hasty word could diminish the authority that silence consolidated. This strategic patience is one of the greatest Stoic virtues. It is the space between impulse and action that defines a person's character. Silencing does not mean accepting or agreeing, but positioning yourself in a superior manner. It is withdrawing from the arena where words turn into useless weapons. By remaining silent, you preserve energy for battles that truly matter. It is a strategic absence that protects integrity and, paradoxically, imposes respect. After all, it's hard to attack someone who refuses to fight. The power of silence lies in its invisible, transformative force. It teaches that not every call deserves a response, nor does every attack deserve a defense, and that, by choosing silence, you make room for the other person to reveal more about themselves than you might imagine. It is, in the end, a silent victory, winning without wearing yourself out, communicating without needing to speak, because sometimes the best answer is none at all. Why speaking less is more powerful than arguing. Speaking less is an act of strength, not weakness. In Stoicism, this choice reveals self-control and preserves personal value in the face of provocation. When someone conserves words, they convey silent authority, as it shows they don't need to convince anyone to exist. The scarcity of speech creates mystery, and imposes respect naturally. It's as if every word has the weight of gold, used only when truly necessary. Arguing often is ceding to the other person's emotional game. It is entering a field where reason is lost and energy is dissipated. By speaking less, you prevent emotions from leading to hasty decisions. This is the power of silence acting subtly, shielding integrity and keeping the economy of attention intact. It is choosing battles with strategic patience. In practical life, speaking less can change entire relationships. A leader who listens more than they speak inspires more trust. A friend who stays silent in the face of an attack avoids unnecessary ruptures. This emotional distance prevents the situation from escalating and, at the same time, maintains a firm posture. Respect is born from this ability not to react impulsively but to preserve words as something rare. Speaking less also reduces unnecessary exposure. Every argument you avoid is an opportunity to remain inaccessible to manipulation. It is a strategic absence that wards off unproductive confrontations and protects your internal space. Integrity is strengthened when the voice is not wasted. Thus, silence becomes more convincing than any justification. Therefore, speaking less is an invitation for the other person to reveal more. By offering silence, we give them space to get tangled in their own words or reveal hidden intentions. This silent victory is an invisible, yet lethal, weapon. And at the right moment, when you finally decide to speak, each syllable carries a power capable of changing the course of any situation. How silence imposes natural respect. Well-managed silence creates a unique, almost palpable atmosphere. In Stoicism, it is seen as a manifestation of inner strength and not as an absence of action. A silent presence is capable of dominating a room without raising a voice. It is inaccessibility transformed into posture, which awakens curiosity and caution in others. The less you explain, the more you are observed. This natural respect is born from the scarcity of words and clarity in actions. The emotional distance that silence builds wards off unnecessary friction. It is like raising an invisible shield into which only those who deserve it can approach. The economy of attention here becomes fundamental. The less energy you give, the more you preserve integrity. Many leaders and wise people throughout history knew how to use silence as a strategic tool. Marcus Aurelius, for example, preferred to observe before acting, and this increased his weight as an authority. Strategic patience allows the other person to reveal more than they would like. Silence, in this sense, is a mirror. It shows the other the reflection of their own intentions. The strategic absence caused by silence makes the other person rethink their attitudes. When there is no immediate reaction, the other person's mind begins to work on its own. A natural discomfort arises, and with it, the recognition that your presence is not common. This process strengthens personal value and confirms that respect is built more by what you withhold than by what you offer. Thus, silence imposes respect not through fear, but through the serene strength it conveys. It is like the calm before the storm. No one knows what will come, but everyone feels that something powerful is there. It is the silent victory that only those who master self-control know. And it is in this mastery that true authority is consolidated, without shouts, without confrontations, only with a firm presence. Historical and Stoic cases that applied this tactic. Throughout history, silence has always been an underestimated weapon. Marcus Aurelius, a master of Stoicism, governed an entire empire without needing to impose fear through shouts. His silent authority came from integrity and the emotional distance with which he made decisions. He observed before acting, allowing time and strategic patience to reveal the best path. Thus, he imposed natural respect without needing to ask for it. Another example is Cato the Younger, a Roman senator known for his incorruptibility. He rarely engaged in heated discussions, preferring to let his actions speak for themselves. This calculated inaccessibility made even his opponents respect him. His strategic absence of words avoided friction and preserved his image. The personal value he carried came from living what he preached, not from demanding recognition. Even in modern times, effective leaders understand the weight of silence. Nelson Mandela, after years in prison, chose to speak with balance and restraint, earning global respect. His self-control showed that he did not let emotions dominate him. This economy of attention kept his speech powerful and intentional. Each of his words seemed more valuable precisely because they were rare. In military fields, victorious generals also used silence as a tactic. They avoided exposing their plans, maintaining inaccessibility as a strategic advantage. This posture confused adversaries and preserved resources. Strategic patience here was not just a virtue, but a matter of survival. Silence, in this context, saved lives and shaped victories. These cases show that silence is not an absence of action, but intelligent action. It is the silent victory that transforms leaders into legends. Whether in politics, war, or personal life, the power of silence spans centuries. It builds authority, strengthens integrity, and maintains respect. And it remains, to this day, one of the most discreet and lethal weapons someone can use. Emotional distance. The key to authority. Emotional distance is like an invisible wall that separates what deserves your energy from what should stay outside. In Stoicism, it is seen as an act of self-control and protection of integrity. It's not about coldness, but about keeping the economy of attention focused on what really matters. This scarcity of access preserves personal value and avoids unnecessary friction. The more selective you are, the more naturally you impose respect. Maintaining emotional distance does not mean isolating yourself, but choosing what and who will have access to your presence. It is a strategic absence that creates a field of respect around you. People realize they cannot invade your space without permission. This inaccessibility is interpreted as strength and silent authority. It shows that you value yourself and therefore are worthy of being valued. Leaders and masters throughout history understood that excessive proximity weakens authority. Being always available dilutes the scarcity that sustains respect. Strategic patience is about knowing how to balance presence and absence. When you appear less often, each appearance has more impact. This applies to both personal relationships and leadership positions. Emotional distance also prevents you from being manipulated by the emotions of others. By observing calmly, without reacting immediately, it is possible to maintain clarity in decisions. This Stoic posture strengthens self-control and prevents impulsive actions. He who masters this skill does not allow himself to be dragged into others' emotional storms. Thus, you preserve your own peace while remaining firm in your position. In the end, emotional distance is not an escape. It is a strategy. It is the key to building lasting authority without needing to raise your voice. It combines inaccessibility with calculated presence, creating an image of strength and stability. This is the silent victory, earning respect without asking, just by controlling how much of yourself the world can reach. And in this protected space, your personal value grows like a deep root. The importance of not always being available. Being always available is like leaving your front door open for any visitor at any time. In Stoicism, this posture weakens personal value, as scarcity is a fundamental part of respect. When your presence is constant and predictable, it loses its impact. Inaccessibility creates an aura of silent authority that cannot be achieved through excessive availability. It is strategic absence that keeps the perception of importance alive. Life shows that what is rare is usually more appreciated. If someone can have access to you at any time, there is no urgency in valuing you. Therefore, limiting your time and energy is preserving your integrity. This economy of attention prevents you from wasting what is precious. Being less accessible makes each encounter more meaningful. Maintaining partial inaccessibility also protects your emotional balance. It is in this reserved space that self-control is strengthened and wear and tear from constant demands is avoided. The emotional distance created by this choice is healthy and strategic. You make it clear that your attention is not cheap currency to be traded for anything. Thus, respect comes as a natural consequence. Great leaders and masters in the past and present understood this silent rule. Marcus Aurelius did not make himself available to everyone all the time, and this strengthened his authority. His strategic patience showed that being present at the right moments was more valuable than always being there. Scarcity, in this sense, is a resource of power that few know how to use. Not always being available is a reminder that your presence has weight and value. It is transforming each appearance into something that matters. It is showing, without saying, that your time is precious and is not given away at any cost. This silent victory shapes how others treat you and establishes an invisible barrier against disrespect. And it is in this protected space that true respect flourishes. Respect is not something you ask for. It is something you impose through the way you live. Throughout this video, you have realized that Stoicism teaches you to trade shouting for presence, argument for calm, exposure for inaccessibility. That strategic absence can be more eloquent than 1,000 words, and that the economy of attention preserves your personal value. He who masters silence masters himself. Now the choice is in your hands. Will you continue trying to convince others of your worth, or will you live in a way that makes it impossible to ignore? Will you continue to explain yourself, or will you let your actions speak for themselves? The world tests, provokes, demands, but you are the one who decides whether to give in or to preserve yourself. Strategic patience and emotional distance are the armor of those who desire lasting respect. Before you go, write in the comments, "I no longer ask, I earn." I want to know who is ready to transform their posture starting today. And if this content made sense to you, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and keep learning how to apply this wisdom in real life. Because in the end, true respect is not a prize. It is the inevitable consequence of those who live with integrity, silence, and authority. Become inaccessible, and the world will come to you. This is your silent victory.